and then you let automation take it over. It's not just the people, it's the people and data all coming together.
Welcome to the Evolvepreneur AI Advantage Show, and I'm your host, Richard Wray. My mission is to help entrepreneurs understand AI and use it to their advantage. Join me today where we dig deep with our guest and get you the best concepts and strategies. Today's special guest is Wissam Tabbara. Wissam is the founder and CEO of Truebase and also an advisor to several startups. Today we are talking about the impact of AI on business-to-business sales. Wissam, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me here.
Really great to have you here, Sam. And as I ask all my guests, where in the world are you?
I'm in Seattle, Washington.
Beautiful part of the world. Again, with my days back at Microsoft, it's a place I know well. And it's actually going to be one of the few warm times of the year there. So hopefully the weather's good.
Not yet, but I hope so.
Yeah, soon. I do hope so. Anyway, Sam, let's get into this. Tell us a little bit about yourself and the amazing things that Truebase is doing.
Yeah, I've been doing startups for a while. I actually used to work for Microsoft back in the day and, did all the career ladder and I had the success in every level, but something was not really adding up for me. So it didn't take more than a phone call from a friend to go and, join their startup. And since then, I didn't look back. Been doing startups for a while. Actually, Truebase is my fourth startup.
Oh, wow.
Had great failures and some success.
I've been there.
Yeah. And also try to, stay engaged with the startup community. So I do advise and mentor and Techstar Seattle and all of that. So it's an opportunity to learn and to give back to the community as well.
It's great that you're doing that, the giving back to the community, especially the startup community, because so many people have got great ideas but don't know where to start or how to make things effective. One question before we get into the rest of the conversation, though. Are you an advocate of the whole concept of failing fast? If you're going to get it wrong, do it fast and move on.
Yeah. So when you say like failing, it depends on what it means, right? Is it failing, shutting down your startup and moving on? I do have regrets at a certain point where things were not going well that I wish I continued.
You didn't hang it.
Right. And I also but when it comes to building a startup, there are things you do, like if you have an idea or a direction and that didn't work, failing fast is great. If you had a bad hire, sometimes failing fast is great. So I'm a big fan of failing fast, but sometimes to really sustain this tenacity and pursuing what you're trying to solve for your vision. And that's sometimes failing fast is not the best thing because it takes a lot of time to really build something meaningful.
That is absolutely true. Let's get into B2B sales. Okay. Truebase got some amazing services, some amazing products from what I've looked at. And I worked in sales a lot of my life. And there's some great stuff there. Very, very impressed with what I've seen. But why don't you tell us about what Truebase does and how you're using AI?
Yeah. Well, the best way to describe what Truebase does is really first to describe the problem in the B2B space. Right? So I always like to start with the problem and see how solution can fit or help solving such a problem. But in B2B space, unlike consumer, right? So usually companies invest in SDRs or sales representative that are really tasked to discover new business. So they're usually spending time on LinkedIn, 4 to 6 hours a day, researching potential prospects, qualifying them.
LinkedIn Sales Navigator, that sort of stuff, and the whole process to go through, yes.
Exactly, right? And then they'll have a few tabs open, a few Chrome extensions in place to discover their contact information. Then they visit their website, read their website if they're doing the job properly, to say, is this a good fit for my business or not? Then they maybe start from a template email or a message that they're trying to go to basically use. And then they personalize it after reading the recipient LinkedIn profile, right? And then they put it maybe in outreach automation. There's many tools to do that, or they just send one off email, right? So that's very repetitive, very manual, very time consuming. If a B2B organization wants to do the math on that, and obviously depending on your price point and what's your success rate, it comes down to almost $900 per demo booked. All right, that's factoring in the SDR or the sales professionals, salary, benefits, taxes, all that kind of thing.
So this just a demo booked. This is not a sale. This is literally just to get people through the door, metaphorically, $900. Exactly.
Yeah. Obviously, plus or minus depending on what you're selling.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
But that means like you're right. It's basically from there, depending on your win rate from demos. It could be a lot more if you want to say how much it costs. What's your customer acquisition cost, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that could be a lot more. So that's a problem today. A lot of it is repetitive, is manual, it's expensive, it doesn't scale. And by the way, like there's some time where you want to book more demos because you have a lot more capacity. Sometimes you don't. And, that means you might overhire sales professionals, but you also might be like, I don't have enough account executive to process all these deals. So there's elasticity problem here, right? Like you have to match the capacity and plan ahead. So that's also another very big problem. So,
and just a question on that then. And also, do you find, I used that approach 10 years ago and it was great then, but obviously we're 10 years later. And do you see people are following this sort of format, this template, and they're getting people through the door for demos, but it can be entirely the wrong people. Somebody go, yeah, I'll come along to that demo. No problem at all. That's $900 for somebody that's never going to buy your product.
Right. So usually like more seasoned revenue teams, they don't jump in a demo right away. So they try to basically engage with the prospect. Mm-hmm. Based on the engagement, there is a qualification step, right? And based on the qualification step, they might send you a link on how you can use a free trial or maybe, buy on your own. Or if it's a bigger account, maybe it's worthwhile to bring you for a demo. So there's usually a process to take a demo or not, but you're 100%. The goal is to get more qualified leads to go through demo, right? Because those have higher success rate to move through the funnel. So the more qualified conversation that they're having early on, the more the ROI will become through the funnel.
Makes complete sense.
Right. So now back to Truebase. So Truebase basically it's an sales AI agent, mm-hmm. where the idea is when you have a mid-level manager training an SDR to do all these manual tasks in place. Now they train an AI SR, an AI sales representative, and that's Truebase, and train them on doing all these manual tasks, right? From finding prospects to qualifying them, discovering their contact information, to writing a hyper-personalized message. All of that until they're super happy with the quality of the whole prospecting journey. It might take you 5 minutes to 5 hours to maybe 5 days to really get that in place so you're happy with the AI training. And then from there on, you set it on autopilot. You say, I want 100 demo booked a week, right? Or whatever your capacity is. And it does the math backward. It can go prospect for tens of thousands of people until it gets you those demos that you're requesting on a weekly basis.
Very interesting. And with the way the system works, does it represent itself as the company, as an imaginary person, or does it actually take on maybe elements of you and you say, hey, my name's Richard, I'm going to teach it things about me, like I went to school here, or these are my hobbies, that sort of thing. And you get that natural connection. Because one of the things I've seen work extremely well, and this was part of the training I got from LinkedIn, was to have those 3 points of connection, somebody a location, an event, that sort of thing.
Yeah, so there is multiple way to use Truebase, but I think you're describing the engagement piece that
Mm-hmm.
you could use it as yourself, or we see a lot of like the associate or the junior sales devs on the team. They usually impersonate or use as their VP of sales or the CEO, because usually those emails convert better. So you can send emails on behalf of your CEO if they're okay with that. Obviously, it varies from one team to another. So that varies. But the point is, AI is there to take orders from you on how you want to really build your brands.
Mm-hmm.
That's why that's our approach, where you are in the driver's seat to control your brand, and AI is there just to automate and help with the manual tasks.
I'm glad you said that you're in the driving seat, because there may be people listening now that may be falling into two camps. One which is going, hey, this is amazing, I can just get on with things, and hey, I don't need quite as many sales staff. Or there may be salespeople out there going, this is going to take my job away from me. And it's that classic thing of, oh my goodness, AI is going to take all away our jobs, which is just not true. I don't believe that 1 second. So tell me, where does the balance lie? Where does what you're doing really sit, and where has this been successful?
So yeah, I totally agree with you. Like, I don't think AI will take people's job. I think it will actually, somebody who's using AI will take your job, right?
I agree totally.
But I think it's like, if you just look historically, right? Like, our jobs responsibility evolve over time, right? Every 5-7 years, there's a huge technology paradigm shift happening. Like, I mean, we can go into when mobile was created, and obviously now AI. And if you're in technology, there was a cloud, and there was drones, and there's like all these kind of always big changes that change the way you do. You're still in sales. We're still B2B. We're still probably selling the same thing, but we're selling it differently, and we are using very different distribution method, or our job responsibility day-to-day change, right? So I think that we have people who adapt faster. They kind of like capture more on the it's more like an opportunity rather than a problem. If you have that mindset to really approach it, then you can obviously get ahead of everybody else and do your job more efficiently. So I think this is where it gets interesting right now, where what I'm seeing is that the team formation of how doing like in the revenue team are changing. So we see a lot of, like, instead of having an army of SDRs and inside sales and all of that, we're seeing there's fewer of them, but they're doing different things. So now there are revenue operation roles, which are a little bit more like it's the thinker on the team. They know how to link things together. They know how to set up all these technology and move data around and apply AI to it. So now SDRs, instead of doing the repetitive manual work, which by the way they don't like, now they're doing discovery calls, right? But she can apply a lot more of their human strength, right? Which is connecting, talking, unblocking potential prospects. This is way more valuable and way more differentiating, rather than really punching the same keys over and over.
I think what you said there is a really important message for people to understand. Those dull, repetitive points that AI excels at. Yes, people can do it, but it's boring. But the things that it's not so good at, which is that human connection, which in the world of sales is incredibly important, that's going to free up people to do that and go out for that coffee, maybe go out for a meal, and really start to develop a true connection with the client, especially if it's a high-value ticket item.
100%. Yeah. And that's really the opportunity here, is that how can we hand off all this manual work and focus on the human work?
That's very, very cool. So tell me, sales, an incredibly high pressure environment to be in at times. If you work by quarter, that last week of the quarter can be more than just a little bit stressful, to say the least. So do you find, or do you think that sales managers, especially when they've got a team of people underneath them, will be expecting more sales, or will they be setting higher targets? Or is it a case of, they've got to be realistic in their expectations?
Well, I think that's like, this is a problem that exists today with the manual repetitive work, right? Because usually if any account, there's two ways that usually revenue teams operate. Sometimes they have the account executive doing their own prospecting. Sometimes they have dedicated SDR teams. If the account executives, which is kind of common, almost 40%, 50% of revenue teams do it this way. When they have the choice to focus on closing a deal or prospecting, they usually focus on more closing the deal.
It's going to be a closing a deal every time.
It's always the time. But if you haven't prospect, you might not have much deals to close in a few weeks, right? So that's kind of where a nice balance in between, right? It's critical. So that's why you see it yourself at the end. It'll be like, oh, I did not prospect enough a few weeks ago, and now I have to try to catch up, and it's the end of the month, and my quota is tied to it. And there you go. Now where the predictability of your revenue teams become very poor. Where in reality, if you have the option to dial it up, if you have to, the predictability kind of improve a lot in your pipeline, right? So that's kind of some of the advantage to have this elasticity that I was describing. You'll be like, okay, well, I need 100 more demo, or I need no more demos this week, right? You get to control that by dialing the AI up or down.
So it does sound to me like you're controlling the scenario in a much more prescribed way. Because let's face it, as I mentioned before, end of the quarter, it's amazing how many discounts get trotted out, or that the client knows it's time to ask for a discount because they know that you're under pressure and you've made your forecast. So it sounds like this is the opportunity to actually have that classic 3x or 4 times X of your actual target and have multiple opportunities. And the amount of prospecting done with AI can help you do that.
Yeah, it can definitely enable you having more engaged conversation, even if you don't have the resources to create those, right? Usually, if you have limited resources, so you lean into discounts and spiffs and all that kind of stuff to really, entice people to have more conversations. But that's one way, because that's probably the only way you do it if you only have 2 SDRs, right?
Yeah.
But if you, for a week, upgrade to 10 SDRs, right? Maybe you don't need to do that, and you can have as many engaged conversations depending on your conversion rate, right? So this is kind of new scenarios or new tools or that you can enable your team to maybe leverage when needed.
Now, how do you use these sets of tools when it comes to the actual forecasting?
Well, it's all about like really plotting out your pipeline steps, right? And understanding their conversion rate, which, by the way, most people don't even know, right? If I ask most revenue teams and I say, okay, well, what is your pipeline looks like, right? Usually, depending what you're trying to do, usually it starts from, pinpointing the prospects, right? Like, what is your ideal customer profile? They usually have some ideas when they are. So those are kind of mapped to filters and Sales Navigator or some of the other prospecting tools. Then there is usually 5 to 8 questions of qualification questions that some human is trying to answer by scouting the internet, going to the company website, going to Crunchbase, all that kind of stuff. And that usually, what does that map to? It might be like, 10% drop. So you might have a list of 1,000, you might end up with 100. And now you want to try to find the right person with the right time, with the right contact information, and that keeps going down.
This is not a short process. This is, right. Catching the person and getting them off of LinkedIn into at least an email conversation and then a phone or video chat or something like that. That is the real goal here, at least.
Exactly. And now, that's one of the tool. That's one of the advantage of having the whole prospecting journey mapped within one comprehensive tool. Now we're able to understand and report, right? So it's like, I'm able to know, like, okay, if I start from 1,000 here, I'm going to end up with 5 demos, right? Now, that usually what I'm describing is many teams, many job titles, many tools, many export and import.
Lots of moving parts here, not necessarily moving together.
Yeah, it's very, very hard to make sense of all of that. Where do you spend your effort? We don't know, right? Where should we hire more? We sometimes don't know. So today there is like the revenue operation function that's usually responsible for putting all that in place and quickly creating insights and, being very attentive. How can we unblock the next bottleneck in this pipeline, right? So that's where it becomes a little bit more, I want to say almost technical. That's how engineering usually operates, right? So applying those kind of mindset into a sales pipeline with the reporting and this mindset of how can we untangle one step of the pipeline becomes very, very helpful by having the whole prospecting journey in one tool.
So as long as the company as a whole has taken a realistic view of the size of the market, because it's no good saying, hey, we'll do this amazing AI system and we'll make 10 times what we made last year when there isn't 10 times possible to make, then it sounds like you've developed a really great process. What is it that you think that you do differently from some of the other solutions out there? Because you did say there are other solutions out there.
Yeah, so let's talk about the market a little bit here. So it's a very saturated market if you think about prospecting tool, right? So there's a lot of, the Apollo, the Zoom Info, we can name tons others. And those are designed for SDR to do their manual work a little bit better, right? So if you go today to a LinkedIn and you plug in few filters, like what's usually called the demographic and firmographic data, what industry, what revenue, what employee size, that's how people think about it. And usually you get the results of 20, and now you're clicking next. Each one you're opening in a different tab, doing all the work. Those tools exist today, right? And it makes SDR work a little bit more efficient, but it's still manual.
It's still a lot to do here.
It's still a lot to do. Now there is a new category being created, which is like, AI, sales AI agents or prospecting with AI. And there's a handful of them, additional to Truebase. There's a Clay, there's Ocean.io, there's Luna, there's a few others. They're all in the early stage, but we're all like right now creating this new category of AI agents where you spend some time configuring and, training for your brand where you are the driver's seat, and then you let automation take it over. That's relatively new, right? So those teams are this is like assuming it's not just the people, it's a people and data all coming together, and that's the AI automation, where the previous generation was just very nice large databases that you can go access. So this category is very different from the predecessor from that perspective.
You've mentioned a phrase there that maybe not everybody's entirely familiar with. We talked about AI agents quite a lot. So just in simple terms, what would you describe an AI agent as?
Yeah, so actually a good way to describe it is, I don't know, maybe I'm dating myself right now, but when you used to buy a ticket, when you used to buy a traveling ticket, right? You want to go on a trip. We used to call an agent, right? That's before the Expedia of the world and Booking.com and all of that, right? Maybe I'm sure it's the same in many parts of the world. But you say, I want to go to a summer vacation, and this is my budget, and this is what I care about, and all of that, right? And some experienced, seasoned agent will do the searching, will do the work. It's like they'll apply, they will come back with you with one solution, and they might even buy the ticket for you, right? And plot out your whole itinerary and what you need to do and all of that.
Because they'll know the quick ways to do these things. They'll know which hotels to call, which flights to book, etc.
They might have called many hotels. They might have the research. They might have called a friend, right, to really figure out exactly
the personal network.
So that's in a way what AI agents are. So you spend a little bit of time training the AI and say, this is what I like. This is my brand, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is my product. This is my ideal customer profile, right? And from there on, you can test it. You can say, well, does it look good, right? Is this what I want? Is it really portraying my message, my brand, and everything else?
Mm-hmm.
And you check, you say like, oh, it all looks great. And now it can run on your behalf and do the work on a daily basis. That's an AI agent.
That makes a lot of sense. So, I just say this is a relatively new field or a new way of approaching the field of prospecting and actually getting the right amount of potential customers through the door. But have you got any examples already where you've deployed your system and people have seen a really genuine positive effect?
We're definitely seeing a lot of early success. We worked in almost 9 months with 20 pilot customers before making the product public. And we've seen a lot of great results, but it's also too early to tell, right?
Very early days, yeah.
Very early days, right? Like actually, Truebase, we publicly launched. We went out of beta like a little bit almost 3 months ago, right? We're having great adoption, great success, great energy in terms of where this is going. And some use cases, we are more successful than the others. Like I can tell you, writing a personalized email from you today, we're still calling it beta, right? We still know that we have a lot more work to make that happen, right? But there's a lot of stuff that we can do, from AI enrichment to really using AI filters to pinpoint or hone into your ICP properly, qualifying. So there's a lot more use case we do well today, and some we're still learning or trying to really figure it out. But overall, I know that over time, that's where we're heading, is really creating this AI agent that can take over your repetitive and manual work.
And these things only get better as time progresses.
That's actually very true, right? And that's the one thing that machines are really good at, right? If you have this very supervised learning, right, ability to train them exactly on your data, we know they can do that job really well. So if you think of how your Spotify playlist recommendation is, or your Netflix recommendation, or how like your Tesla drive itself, all of that is the same concept. The machine gets better over time because it's learning from all these use cases.
So if there's one piece of advice that you would want people to take away from our conversation today, what would it be?
Embrace it, right? Don't fight it. So embrace the AI. This is kind of really, it's not a matter of, is it going to happen? It will happen. And
it's happening.
It's happening as we speak. And I think fighting it, and like, it's almost you're boxing yourself, right? Like it's just kind of, there's an opportunity here rather than it's a problem. The more you learn, the more you understand, the more you play with every separate tool, the more you're curious about it, the more you're going to have like capture on this opportunity faster than the other. A lot of people think it's also like, oh, it's too late. I cannot do it. In fact, the one thing I want to say, it's a lot simpler than anything else, because today your interface is probably one input box. You're talking in natural English, right? Natural languages. You don't have to go figure out very larger things to do, right? Like learning that you how to use the phone or the smartphone was maybe a lot harder. So just embrace it, go for it, and try to incorporate in your day-to-day and see where this journey takes you.
That is fantastic advice. Wissam, where can people find you and Truebase, and tell us about any potential trials or other exciting projects that they can look at?
Yeah, so Truebase.io, if you want to find me personally, it's Truebase.io/about us. I have links to all my social media. I'm very active on LinkedIn. Please feel free to reach out, even if it has nothing to do with Truebase. I'm always happy to have a conversation, and because it's an opportunity for me to learn. Truebase has a 14 days free trial where you can really play with AI and make sure it's the right fit. And yeah, you can start a trial at Truebase.io.
Sam, that's fantastic. And as I say, being a former sales professional, I really like the sound of what you're doing. If it can reduce that end of quarter stress, it's got to be a good thing.
Absolutely. Well, it was really fun being here, Richard. Really appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. Well, that's a wrap on another awesome guest episode for the Evolvepreneur AI Advantage show. Just before you go, if you like this episode, we would be very grateful for a 5-star review. Please also consider recommending the show to a friend or two. Make sure you subscribe for future episodes at aiadvantage.show right now. Until next time, I'm Richard Wray, and if you're an entrepreneur, get the AI Advantage today.